Hi everyone. Wanted to post an update after the meditation retreat. It has been very powerful, challenging, healing, I would say. And I'm back at Amritapuri Ashram. I didn't think I was going to come back, but I came with friends who are leaving the area in a couple of days, so makes sense. And I got here and I'm like, maybe it's just fine to be here a little longer. Anyway, the meditation retreat was 10-day Vipassana, Goenka style. Vipassana is a Buddhist practice of meditation that involves scanning the body from head to toe, just bringing your awareness to sensations in every part of the body and flowing through it with total equanimity. That means not having a judgment towards those sensations or resistance towards them, just being aware of them and accepting them, not letting it convert to emotional reaction, as the sensations lead to emotions, lead to sanskara, action, and they become habituated, and this practice is to undo those conditionings to act in certain ways as reactions to these sensations. And anyway, it was about 10 hours of meditation every day from the morning to the evening. So wake up at 4 o'clock, meditate from 4:30 to 6:30, and then breakfast break for an hour and a half, another hour meditation, another 2-hour meditation, bringing you to 11 o'clock lunch. It's a 2-hour break. And then there's a 4-hour chunk of meditation with breaks divided into 3 segments, bringing you to 5, a little tea break, very light food, and then an hour meditation, a discourse from the teacher, and then bedtime after another meditation. And meditating for that long definitely is powerful and consciousness altering, and it brings up a lot to the surface. And day 1 was the hardest. In a lot of ways it got easier and easier, but there was no, I don't know if that's true. Some people talk about a breakthrough where from then on out it's just flying and perfect and flowing, but I think it just got progressively easier, but there were still a lot of moments where things would come up that wouldn't be so easy, wouldn't be so pleasant. Around day 8, I felt, okay, this has really changed me. I'm in a different state of consciousness, a different person. I get this. And I was seeing all these signs, like animals, like butterflies showing up and the snake crossing the path, and oh yeah, it's transformation medicine. We've come out of the cocoon, we're shedding our skin. And on the 9th day, at a moment, I started feeling like I was tripping by the end of it, that I was on some sort of psychoactive something. I walked out into the sun, closed my eyes, put my head towards the sun, and then my eye started having this strobing light effect, and then seeing these psychedelic patterns, I'd taken very powerful psychedelic for a minute or two. And that has also happened to me without substances, with other sorts of practices, sometimes quicker than 9 days. But what also accompanied this was this very slow, deep sense of calm and ease, and I would tap into that at some points in meditation, but before getting there would be a lot of agitation. Oh, and this is very, very significant, that my body physically reacted in really intense ways to this body scanning, and the places where I have like tightness, injury, my arms swelled, like they were really hot and swollen, and my hands were swollen. And I don't know if this was from the heat. It was a little bit uncomfortable, honestly. Like it's very hot in South India, and the room was there were fans there, but the room got hot. It was almost hotter than being outside in the shade. But as I noticed that, like, stopping meditating and relaxing for a time, the swelling went away, I really sensed, and the fact that it got easier over time made me think that it's like just that factor of awareness, bringing that psychic attention into the body, created the healing effect in the body. But healing with energy, with consciousness in general, it always gets worse before it gets better. So there had to be this sort of like really intense somatic like kick in the butt. Oh, it's too hot now. To start to get the energy to release. And I kind of experienced through this that there's a lot of I'd done similar work, but in cacao ceremonies with Keith in Guatemala, it's weird to say that that's similar, but the fact of going into your body, asking for your consciousness to become more tuned in, and feeling that whatever there's tension, wherever there's pain, it's quite different in the sense that he would say make it bigger and focus on it. And I actually found that, from doing this Vipassana, that approach doesn't help, because when I would find myself getting into places of tension, I would follow the instructions, and I asked the teacher about it, like, okay, stay there. When you feel that there is pain, or there is what they call a blind spot where you can't feel any sensation, or it feels hazy or cloudy, stay there longer, stay there for about a minute. But I noticed that I would start to extend that beyond like a minute, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4. But when I did that and didn't just continue sweeping the body, that place would get worse. And I started to see that, this sort of old way of practicing where I focus on what's hurting isn't helpful. You got to have that full body awareness. By being holistic is the full spectrum awareness of every aspect of reality as we experience it in the body, because reality is, after all, just in the body, because everything we know about reality we only know from our perspective within this limited body. Anyway, so just focusing so intensely on it, and not having that full body flow made it more stuck. But when I would here's the resistance, I'll give it a little bit more attention, but I'm going to keep flowing, then it would just kind of disappear and fade away. And I started with a lot of pain, and my problem areas towards the end still had a little bit of pain, but areas that weren't necessarily problem areas that got a little bit stuck and stiff in the beginning, like my knees, like towards the end, didn't experience as much pain at all, even though because of that I didn't move them, and that still had an effect on my physicality, and that getting up, my knees felt like, whoa, really bent out of shape. It didn't hurt as much as it was like I was wobbling. Interesting. And so anyone who's new to meditation, somehow watching this, you have to get this idea out of your head when you practice meditation, or when you consider meditation, that it is about stopping thoughts, because the mind cannot be stopped. And I knew that, so I didn't really have resistance to thoughts. But there was a lot that was purged, and it was interesting, some traumatic events play out again and again, and finally, like, towards the end, getting to a place of, like, acceptance or embrace of that, gratitude even for my own, mistakes. And the traumatic events that involve my own actions, my own mistakes are this, I think those are the ones that get more stuck for most people. For me, that's true. And even on a conscious level, you can comprehend the idea that, oh, well, you wouldn't be where you are today without this. But then finally get to a place of, like, actually, like, integrating that in the body. And, like, I remembered that, and then I was like, oh, yeah, well, things are good now. So why bother? Why bother with this? And other things that were just clearing out, it was crazy how much my mind was, like, having visions of video games and video game music, like something that in my younger years would occupy so much of my time. I mean, it makes sense, but it's crazy how those things actually, like, go into the body. And I was just still, not in a state of resistance, like, it was sort of nostalgic, but then I was also feeling and sensing that this is, like, yeah, this was like the original numbing tool. Like, this was what shut up and for me it was fear. It shut up the fear, the feeling of not being in control, and really processed in this space of, like, yeah, everything, all of the negative emotions are coming from this sense of, in my experience, can't speak for everyone, feeling out of control and wanting to take control. And then integrating this idea that, oh, well, my attention and my attitude are actually the only things I have control of, and I'm always in control of them. I'm just creating the experience that I'm not. And here I am, sitting and choosing to take complete control of what I actually have control of, and letting go of everything I don't. And that was just an amazing flow. But nonetheless, I feel great now, and I have to say it's just not pleasant. Like, it's not pleasant during it, even though there are these moments of peace. You can only get to them if you cultivate the attitude that I'm doing this torture to make my life better, to make my mind better, and accepting that, then, like, okay, yeah, we got it. But not really, like, not completely. It's tough. We watched a video at the end of, like, how in India, where Vipassana originated in India some, like, 2,500 years ago with Buddha, and it was practiced before that, but Buddha said this is the foremost teaching to become enlightened. And but then it was preserved best in Burma, where an Indian man born in Burma, a businessman, eventually came to learn it to heal his psychosomatic chronic headaches, and then brought it back to India, from which point it spread across the world. And in India, it's been implemented in prison systems to create more harmony and help rehabilitate people with great success. And it was really interesting in the video that one of the prisoners that became a Vipassana instructor or teacher supporter in the prison system said that in prison there's some rules. In Vipassana, some of the rules are actually more strict than in the prison. And that's totally true. It is the most imprisoned that I've ever felt, and you'll ever feel if you go. With, there's some hours you have to be free, but honestly, you'd think you're resting just sitting there, but you get so tired from all of the psychic work that's happening that most of those breaks I would just sleep. Maybe in the lunch or afternoon break, sometimes I wouldn't sleep, but the first breakfast break, I'm just back, and 6 or 7 hours of sleep if you manage to sleep, luckily I was really good at sleeping. I had really vivid dreams, but it's a bit like being imprisoned. And Goenka, the teacher, even joked about in one of the discourses that, oh yeah, it's like you're in prison. Get me out of this prison. And I was playing games with myself of like, okay, we're 2 days through, we just have to do what we've already done 4 more times. We're 5 days through, halfway through, we're 6 days through. That's like 1.5 times what the entire retreat is. So you've got this every day, like playing these games, like you're so close. You're almost there. Almost there. Because, I longed for the freedom, even though I knew it was good for me. The difficult things you just want to be over. It's such an issue, though, that we are in a world that's, like, chasing instant gratification, and, like, there is a value to just the things that are the most pleasurable, and there's some things that are pleasurable and fun and healing that have this, like, resounding, lasting impact of improving our lives, but we don't fully take them in and experience them without attaching to aspects of them. If we don't also go through these experiences that are super uncomfortable and super limiting and constricting in some way, that help us cultivate that quality of equanimity and balance and non-attachment, presence, right? And that, like, whether it's the discomfort of meditating, the discomfort of uncomfortable yoga positions, or the restriction of following a healthier diet, the restriction of doing a physical detox, maybe drinking some gross things, maybe having a medicine that puts you on through the ringer. These things, like, make us more resilient, make us more powerful, make us actually way happier, because we learn to find that neutrality through the challenge, and it's totally necessary. And this has been a lot of my experience with the things that I've done, from yoga to plant medicines, meditation retreat, and blah 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 blah. This is my second meditation retreat. The first one was not Vipassana, and I don't know if I will do Vipassana specifically again in the Goenka style. Vipassana as a meditation practice is going to stay with me, and I really think I'm going to hold myself to do at least 1 hour every day. They recommend 2 to integrate, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. But I think I'm going to do at least 1 and keep with my other practices. I don't know if I'm going to do Goenka style Vipassana again, just because it is so strict, and I've heard of other Vipassana style practices in Sri Lanka, in Thailand, where it's the same technique, but the structure around it is a little bit more relaxed. I want to experiment with all of them. The next idea I have is to do a Zen Buddhist retreat. The first retreat I did was Hridaya Yoga, based on Advaita Vedanta, the teachings of Ramana Maharishi specifically, and that was not as good as this. But on this retreat, I will say that there's a lot about the Goenka style of teaching that I think only at this point in my life, after I've had enough experiences of the pluses and minuses of being more rebellious and not really wanting to follow a strict authority, and just feeling a little bit more neutral about that, could I actually go to this retreat, because it is very strict, and the teachings are a little bit strict, and I knew that ahead of time, and I just kind of prepared myself so that it wouldn't trigger me. But there's something to what he's saying, that like practices like mantras and pranayama, breath control, counting, meditations where you're really focusing your mind, they're good for cultivating an energy, but they don't actually break the attachment and aversion samskaras. And according to Buddhism and him, that breaking those are actually what lead you to liberation. nonetheless, it doesn't need to be the only style of meditation that you do. The energy cultivating things like mantras and visualizations and more like controlled things help you to cultivate an energy that can really translate to big changes in your life. And doing, you know, I'm always going to be doing all of the different kinds of meditations and changing it up as I go, because I want to explore everything. And that's also another, you know, and I've heard people say this here at this ashram too, this metaphor that, oh, if you're digging a well to get to the water beneath, that's sort of what spiritual seeking is. And if you only, if you try every path, it's like digging many holes, but you never get deep enough to hit water. But if you dig one deep hole through one path, you get to the wellspring. And I don't necessarily agree with that, because the Buddha himself practiced every single thing that he could find at that time, as have many other spiritual teachers that have created really comprehensive systems. And I think that having that full spectrum awareness allows you to really understand why you choose the things you do and why they work for you. So I don't agree with this, well, you find this one path and stick to it. And a lot of the teachings of Goenka are sort of about, you know, why we must do this and follow this specific path. And it got a little bit old, but he was also having a lot of humor and he was sweet. So a lot of what he was teaching about non-impermanence and not attaching, not averting was really, really good. And I enjoyed him most of the time. I have to say the chanting that happens after the meditation or before the meditation was really too much. When it was short and just a couple minutes long, it was fine, it was great. But then sometimes it was like after the morning meditation, 90 minutes into the 2-hour meditation, you get a half an hour of him chanting. And it's not like the most beautiful melodic chanting, it's very deep, but then he's doing this thing where it sounds like he's like doing the death rattle amidst the chant, like Anicca, and like every word where you're like I still have aversion to it. I'm not enlightened yet. I still have aversion to that. I'm sorry. Can't do it. No, it did actually make me laugh at times, but I was tired of it. I really was. And what else? But I mean, overall, it was really good, and I recommend everyone to do a meditation retreat at some point, whether it's Vipassana or whether it's another one. You have to do what resonates. What I thought would resonate more was Hridaya Yoga, because it involves yoga as well, and it was nice to do yoga in the midst of a day full of meditating. But then there was way too many lectures. There was like 4 hours total of like one lecture, another lecture, and the question and answer session. And like his dogmatism was even worse, and it was also a little bit too like mishmashy. It was like, we're learning from this sort of mysticism and that sort of mysticism, trying to create this universal mystic thing, but the meditation technique, like, it was almost too blended of this and that and the other. And it also didn't make sense that we're like, you know, if it's a meditation retreat for every person, for somebody living a life in this world, that we're admiring and looking up to the most like aesthetic renunciate people, whereas I could really feel that, oh yeah, Vipassana is absolutely a technique for everyone, whatever kind of life they're living. They can do this meditation, and it will help a lot. And I mean, there were different benefits of the Hridaya retreat, which is very heart-centered, and it's great to be able to open the heart. And I had very like spiritual, mystical, like whoa, like this blissful energy. But then, yeah, I mean, I think it was challenging in that when you have those experiences, it's easy to attach to them, and it didn't really give the framework to not attach to them. So they were like these elusive moments of like, here it comes, like, okay. And then I'm like, oh, it's gone. Like, why don't I get there again? Like, the rest of the meditation retreat is frustrating now. And also, I think that it activated, I don't know if it was the place that I was in life and the fact that I wasn't fully at the center, but I think it's also something in the retreat that it's more like activating of something that was more difficult to release, and deeper, and even though that happened, it was good for me. It was what I needed to go through a very transformative phase, sort of like that is a more transformative kind of meditation experience. And like, yeah, we love transformation, but transformation isn't always easy, and something about this full body awareness that's very neutral of the Vipassana, I think is more about creating like a stability and a structure and having a grounding that is maybe more helpful and maybe better for people's first sort of meditation retreat experience, and it's what a lot of people are drawn to first. But anyway, I don't want to go on for too long. It's already too long, isn't it? But thanks for watching. Let me know if you have questions. And yeah, I wanted to share that to I guess coming back into reality is something to talk about as well. That when it ended, like, I had a lot of apprehension, as sometimes I do when coming back from these like containers sort of detached from the world where you don't see the phone. Like, I really hope nothing has gone wrong and there aren't these like looming weird messages in any of my inboxes. And there weren't, but some of that intensity didn't quite go away right away. And coming back, there was a little bit of anxiety coming back into the world, but I find that when I've done after yesterday was the first full day back in the society, and I found that, okay, when I went and did the meditation again, that softened. So I really am going to put the emphasis on continuing to do the practice. And something about, I don't know, just all of the sensory stimulus is a little bit overwhelming, and that's part of why also I think being at the ashram is really good, because it's not quite fully in the world. It's a bit safer, so that don't get too wobbled, too thrown off. Anyway, grateful, magical, and I feel excited for the next chapter. This week I'm intending to be very productive and do a lot of the things that I was thinking about. Like, I'm frustrated that I'm always thinking about doing these things. These are my goals, these are my priorities, these are like the foundations of my life, and I only get through some of them, and knowing what the distractions are and what things hold me back. So time to use the focus I've got to really do the things, and that might mean just staying here and not really traveling until someone comes and visits, and I will definitely be traveling and definitely be intentionally distracted some of the time. Anyway, love, blessings, magic, joy, all of the things, and I will update you as I go through the next chapter and continue to post many channeling things. I'm available for all of the channeling and astrology sessions in a renewed, more pristine vibration. Be well, be brilliant. Love, 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 love. Bye.